Advanced Studio Classroom is on the air. Can you learn respect? Hi, everyone. Welcome to Advanced Studio Classroom. And it is the third day of our parenting article, and we've been discussing fathers and Father's Day and the gift of respect on Father's Day, and we're going to finish that article today. And I have two great panelists to help me discuss it today.
Hi, everybody. It's Amanda here, and it's good to be back.
And what do you remember about yesterday?
Well, yesterday we met Erin Smalley, and she works at Focus on the Family, and she wrote this article about realizing the need to be intentional about the respect she gives her husband. And I just really like that. It was something that she felt she needed to do more intentionally. And we talked about that word intentional yesterday, meaning it's planned or intended, or I would even say being deliberate in doing something about something.
Okay. And also?
Hello, everyone. I'm Brandon. Good to be back.
And what do you remember about yesterday? I know you were not premeditating murder.
Yes. That's what we talked about yesterday. We talked about it more than I intended. But anyway, we did see Erin Smalley. We talked about her, and she's at this marriage group, and she's learning something. And so what she heard kind of hit her and made her think. We learned the word conviction. Okay, so she was thinking about what she heard, and she realized she needed to make a change in her life with regards to how she respected her husband. And also we see that it affects the kids. You know, the kids are watching them, and if they see her disrespecting her husband, they may pick up on that and think that it's okay. Right.
And I just want to mention the other word, the way that it's used, to scream. We learned that, or we read that, sometimes our harsh tones or our body language can scream disrespect. Now, usually when we talk about screaming, it's yelling.
Yeah.
But actually, this is kind of a great word, because if something that you do screams a feeling, it means it is too big or too easy to notice it.
It's so obvious. That
Right.
It's like
very,
it's
very obvious.
Screaming.
Right. So you won't see this really often, and it's kind of used in this kind of way mostly.
It's kind of more of an informal word, I guess,
Yes.
or way to describe this.
So today we're going to continue on with Erin Smalley's article. So yesterday she talked about showing more respect to her husband, and gave some examples about, justifying when she felt she had shown disrespect even though she didn't mean to. We need to think about that. And now today she's going to go on to talk about maybe some things that we as women or as wives can think about when we're dealing. This is just true for people in general. How do we treat people? Mm-hmm. And the way we treat our family members is really how we learn how to treat people in society.
Yes.
So I think that this is not necessarily for husbands and wives. And I mean, it is very close to home, because we tend to disrespect those that we are most familiar with, especially people that we live with every day. We become way, way too casual in our expectations and the way we treat one another.
Yeah.
And actually, in English, we have a saying, familiarity breeds contempt. And that's when you're talking about the people that are closest to you, which are generally your family members. You're around them all the time. You know each other's habits. You know the way you do things. And so what can often happen is you take them for granted and you speak to them harshly or disrespectfully. And that's the contempt part.
Or you scream at them with your body language.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay, so today we are on page 18 in your magazine. And if you want to turn there, you can read along with us or perhaps you can find it on your digital device and follow along with us. And we are going to read the left-hand column first on page 18.
Practical honor. The Oxford Dictionary defines respect as a feeling of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements. After pondering this definition, it became clear to me that I would need to regularly recognize what I most admired about Greg. Maybe I'd even need to keep a list of character qualities, abilities, and achievements that I loved about him, so I could refer to it regularly. I can respect my husband by making a choice, especially when I'm frustrated with him, and I can respect my husband as an overflow of the habit of my heart.
So we're going to take a look at the Oxford Dictionary, and they have I really like their definition of respect. What does it say about it, Brandon?
It says it's a feeling of deep admiration for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements.
So what does that really mean?
Well, starting off with that word admiration, that's actually another word for respect. But if you admire someone, you think highly of them. And then we get into, some other words here that we have to define. But if we just want to talk about the word respect, I think if you think highly of someone, you kind of put them above yourself.
Okay, so that word, I admire him, I respect him, we often use those interchangeably, I think. Okay, but it goes on to define it even more so. It says, for someone or something elicited by their abilities, qualities, or achievements. And so this is one of our vocab focus words.
Right. Elicit means that they're producing something or getting something. So in this case, the respect is produced or given to a person because they produce something, whether it's abilities, whether it's the qualities or characteristics they have, or something that they've achieved.
You know, and this doesn't come necessarily with your position in life, because a lot of people in high position don't have respect. It depends upon, what they've done to gain it.
Right. Yeah, and that's the character part too,
right.
I think. Like you may be a CEO of a company, but treat people quite badly, right? But we're talking about characteristics of a person. What kind of character do they display? And
actually, this doesn't go along with any station you have in life. You can show respect to people all across the board in life.
Right. All people you can give
and
respect.
We should have respect for one another.
That's right. You shouldn't wait for them to really do something. You should just give that respect, give them that honor, because they are another human being, right? And that word elicit, sometimes when I hear that word, I think of the word response. We use that with the word response a lot of times. If you elicit a response, maybe you did something or said something, and people respond to that. They say something, an answer, give an answer for that. So you say something to elicit a response.
Right. And here she said that she pondered this definition, after pondering this definition. So what is the difference between thinking about it and pondering, thinking about something and pondering something?
Well, when I think of pondering something, it's thinking about it for a while, okay? You really focus in on it. You don't just quickly think about it. You think about it for a long period of time.
So she said after she did this, it became clear to her, she realized that she would need to regularly recognize what she admired most about her husband, Greg.
Right. So what she's saying is, from this definition of respect, she needs to respect her husband more. And the way to do that is by thinking about what is it that she admires about Greg.
Yeah, I think this is quite interesting. She said that maybe she needed to keep a list of character qualities or abilities and achievements that she loved about him so that she could refer to it regularly.
Right. And this is the intentional part that we were talking about earlier. Intentional is deliberate, right? So planned or intended. So here she's planning to be respectful towards her husband by remembering the qualities, the achievements, and abilities that he has.
And this really speaks to me because I think oftentimes we know we should do something, but we don't take the time to do it. We hear something, we hear a teaching, whatever it is, but she's actually making a list. She's doing something practical, and we talked about this at the top here. It says practical honor. What are some practical things you can do? One of the things, she's writing a list.
Right, and she also realized that she could respect her husband by making a choice. And really, how we treat people is our choice.
Yes.
Sometimes we feel like, oh, I don't have any control over this feeling. But you do have.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just say that, when I got married when I was 25, I've been married over 40 years, and we're happily married. But when the first few months were quite difficult, I think probably because of my personality, my husband's is pretty easygoing. But I remember I kind of didn't know what to do about it. So I made a decision, and I didn't tell him, but I made a decision that for a month I would think about a different aspect of him that I cared about or loved about him every day, that I could respect him for. Mm-hmm. And, at the end of that month, my attitude had totally changed. Wow. So it had nothing to do with wanting to be married to him. It's just we were so busy then. And, you can develop very bad habits or attitudes very early on.
Yes.
And so it totally changed my attitude toward our marriage and toward our life. And we've done marriage counseling over the years with couples, and I often tell them, if you don't need to tell them your spouse that you're going to be doing this because it's really about yourself. You cannot change anybody.
Yeah.
Right. But often it's not them necessarily that needs to change. Oftentimes it's our attitudes.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I think something that it talks about too is, we often think we follow our feelings.
Right.
Right. But here she says, I made a choice. Right. And so making a choice doesn't mean you necessarily follow your feelings or you're not ruled by your feelings. Yeah. Right. You're actually ruled by a decision that you make. And so if you feel like you're heading towards being disrespectful, well, then make a choice to be respectful, but then action it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, love is a verb. And it's, we so often define it as a feeling.
Yeah.
I don't feel love. But, if somebody does something for you and you feel, I do an action towards somebody and that person feels love, that's love in action. I might not necessarily feel like, I love this person,
right,
even though I do it for them. So, it also changes our own attitude and our own hearts.
Right. I like that idea that it's a choice because our feelings can be all over the place. But if we choose to do something, then we just follow through with that.
And I also like her last sentence here. She said, as an overflow of the habit of my heart. And we talked a little bit about this yesterday, how we learn or how we respond. We can teach ourselves. What we do early on becomes a habit in our lives.
And I think that's not just in this kind of relationship. It's actually in every area of our life.
Right.
But like we mentioned before, we talked about not following your feelings. Well, when you make a choice or a decision, you often have to keep doing it a certain amount of times for it to become a habit, right? To form into a habit. And so that way, then it starts to become the norm for you.
That's right. And Linda mentioned she did this for 30 days, right? I think I've heard that a lot for forming a habit. Try to do it for at least 30 days.
Right. I think it's interesting. I didn't write down my list, but I think it's interesting that she wrote down and referred to her list regularly to kind of, review what she loved and respected about her husband. So, there are different things that we can do to, make this a habit of our hearts.
Right.
Well, let's go on to the second column on page 18, and let's read this next paragraph.
How to demonstrate respectful behavior. Maybe you too have become acutely aware of your desire to be more intentional in offering encouragement and respect to your husband. Maybe you would ultimately like to teach your kids to do the same. This Father's Day, I cannot help but think there's no greater gift for Dad than respect, both for the day and in the months that follow.
So how do we demonstrate respectful behavior?
Well, there's certain ways, and obviously here we're talking about the author, Erin. She says maybe you too. So now she's asking us, the reader, have become acutely aware of our desire to be more intentional in offering encouragement and respect to our husbands, right? So there are certain ways we can do that, and she's going to go on to talk about that.
Right. And if you're acutely aware of something, this is one of our vocabulary words. It says to be very, very, or completely aware.
That's right. So she's very aware of what's going on. She has no confusion.
And she goes on to say that maybe we want our kids, okay, you would ultimately like to teach your kids to do the same. And I think as a mother or a father that this is one of our responsibilities, actually. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's Father's Day. Well, this is the day after Father's Day, and she says she cannot help but think there's no greater gift for Dad than respect.
Right, not just from his wife, but also from his children as well. Yeah.
And that is a great gift. I think, we all want respect. And you can get them any gift, but if you don't do it out of love and respect, then it doesn't matter as much, right?
Right. And it's not just for today. She goes on to say for the day and the months that follow, and I would also say for the years that follow, Mm-hmm. So these are lifelong habits that we are building and instilling in our children.
Yes, and it takes a long time, I think. You can't just do it one day and the next day you don't. I mean, it's a struggle. You're not perfect, but I think you have to be consistent.
Right. Well, she is including us here now and going to give us some tips, 5 tips that might help us with our endeavor or with what we're trying to accomplish here. So why don't we read this section now?
Here are a few things that might help with your endeavor. 1. Every day, be on the lookout for one thing in your husband's behavior for which you can praise him. Maybe it's his faithfulness to go to work each day and be a great provider. Or maybe it's simply emptying the dishwasher. If you look for praiseworthy behavior, you will find it. Consider writing it down on a list of what you most admire about your husband. Encourage your kids to do the same. 2. Offer your husband words of encouragement and affirmation, maybe even at the dinner table in front of your children. Consider inviting your children to share as well. 3. When you are alone with your kids, always talk positively about your husband. Tell them how much you appreciate their dad. 4. When you blow it by speaking to your husband in dishonoring ways, simply clean it up. Acknowledge that you are wrong and ask your husband to forgive you. 5. Commit to honoring and respecting your husband, regardless of what he does or does not do in response to your respect.
So she's giving us some tips that she has found, I think, that probably has worked in her own life as she has endeavored to change the way that she shows respect. And I think the first one is really pretty interesting. She said, be on the lookout for one thing in your husband's behavior for which you can praise him daily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I won't ask, I'll ask do you do that?
I think after reading this article, I've tried to be more intentional about doing that. So I think it's become more, I think I'm still forming the habit, shall we say. But I do think that this has really helped me to think about that. And so here I feel like this is a very intentional move that she made to do it every day,
Right. And I think that this is also true for husbands toward their wives. It is very easy to take each other for granted, you know. And I like the examples she gives are, you know, very common ones. Maybe it's his faithfulness to go to work each day and be a great provider.
Yeah. It can be something that's important and simple that's often overlooked, but you can still praise them for that.
Or maybe it's simply emptying the dishwasher. Okay, I have a true confession. You know, there are some things you just hate to do, and mine is emptying the dishwasher.
My mom's
we have
the same
one.
way.
I don't mind filling it. I don't mind washing dishes by hand. I just do not like to empty the dishwasher. I will let them sit in there forever. David always empties it. Always. He doesn't mind at all.
Yeah.
I have to learn to thank him more for doing that. 'Cause I really...
Well, you help each other, right?
Yes, we do. I remember when we were first married, we took turns every other night cooking, and the other person was supposed to do the dishes.
Oh.
But then we changed it to the night you cooked, you also had to do the dishes because he basically used every pan in the kitchen.
I do the same thing. Yes. I don't like doing the dishes part. The cooking's not so bad, but I want someone else to do the
dishes. I don't mind washing the dishes.
I had a friend, whenever he cooked, he would clean up as he went. So by the end
smart.
of it, the kitchen was spotless.
Yeah.
And I thought, that's something that I could learn from.
Yeah.
I try to do that when I'm like having a party or having people over for dinner. But it's just amazing. They still just pile up,
Right.
you know, at the very end,
Right.
you know. But anyway, this is something I need to thank him more for emptying that dishwasher. So if you look for praiseworthy behavior, you will find it. I think this is really just being kind to one another.
Right.
You know, it's just acknowledging what the other person is willing to do in your relationship.
And not taking things for granted, right? Just be on the lookout. What can I praise someone for? And you can do this for other people in the workplace as well.
Yep.
You show support and encouragement.
Right.
Yep.
And if you can't remember, then she suggests that you write it down on a list of what you admire about your husband and also encourage your kids to do the same.
Yeah, I think that's a really good family habit when you encourage your kids to do the same thing. You know, perhaps it's even something you intentionally do at the end of your day, whether it's after dinner or before they go to bed. It could be a very intentional exercise you could do with your kids.
Right. You know, I think we as parents spend a lot of time trying to demonstrate, you know, that there's a lot of self-worth in our children. We want to make sure that, you know, they are not feeling bad about themselves, that we as adults tend to not think about our spouse in that way because we're putting so much effort into our kids. But, you know, if we remember that our children learn from us and our behaviors toward one another, that says a lot more for their development.
Right.
So, also, I thought that, well, this goes along with what you just said, Amanda, number 2. And it says to offer your husband words of encouragement and affirmation.
Yeah, and so it says maybe even at the dinner table in front of your children. So here it's actually the wife and the husband actually saying those words of encouragement in front of their children. So maybe, I don't know, more intentional in front of the other person. Yeah.
And so when you think back about growing up, you know, I don't know if I noticed my parents doing this that much.
Yeah, I don't remember that either.
My dad was very deliberate with it with regard to cooking, like my mom cooking the meal. You know, he would always make sure he thanked her for it, and he encouraged us to do the same thing, you know.
I can only remember 2 times in 42 years of marriage that David has said anything semi-negative, and basically they both were terrible meals. But but the first one was, you know, I thought we needed to go on watch what we ate. So I made chicken boiled in water with tomatoes, and at the end of the meal, he was like, we probably never need to have this again. It's like, that was a nice way of telling me you hated this.
Yeah, I do. My dad would often just, as soon as he starts eating, just comment about, oh, it's really good or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just make a point to do that.
Yeah, my husband is like that too. And, it does encourage you.
Yeah.
Because, you get really tired of cooking after a while.
Right.
So I think also when you're alone with your kids, you can talk positively about your husband and tell them how much you appreciate their dad. I think this is a big, everybody I think should circle this one.
Yes, because I think that if you are, you're reinforcing what you're saying in public, also in private. And I think the other way around, what you say in private, you reinforce in public. Because if you do the opposite, you're actually sending them very mixed signals and they don't know what to believe.
Right. And sometimes they might be disappointed in something or they might say something negative about their dad. And I think as the mother and as the wife, it's up to you if they say it to you to help them understand or to be more accepting because maybe something happened and, their father couldn't do something.
Yeah, that's good.
So also, the fourth one is kind of interesting, right, Brandon?
Yeah, when you blow it by speaking to your husband in dishonoring ways. And we all know what it's like to blow it. You fail to, take advantage of an opportunity and you say something wrong. You just, when you blow it, you go off and you just let somebody have it, say something you regret. And this is something that you need to try to correct. Beforehand, because in the moment it's hard to change your mind.
She said the last sentence here says, acknowledge that you were wrong and ask your husband to forgive you. That is something you should learn early on in your marriage, and your life will be so much easier. In the early days, it was so hard for either one of us to say, I'm sorry, or, we would... it's easy to develop the habit of not speaking to your husband for like a few hours to a day or so. Just get it over with.
Right.
Because in the end, you want to repair the relationship. And it's also good for you. It's good for both of you.
Yeah.
That's right.
I think this is really good when we're saying clean it up. I think this actually means anything for anything in life. When you make a mess, that you get into the habit of cleaning it up.
I totally agree. And remember that this is on you. It's not on them. So regardless of what happens, it's still up to you to make this decision and carry through with it.
That's right. And one final thought, I think, don't focus on your feelings. Make the decision and let the feelings follow that commitment.
Well, it's time to go. We hope that you have enjoyed our parenting article. We invite you to write us on Facebook or send us a note and tell us what how you feel. You can do that now. How you
Yes.
You can focus on your feelings in your letter, and we hope that you will join us again here on Advanced Studio Classroom. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.